Okay, there's still some people joining, but let's get started with introductions and start talking about this webcast that we're going to do here. So this is a virtual panel on the topic of retail, how to survive and thrive in the age of acceleration. We've got some experts on the line here, and we'll have them introduce themselves in just a minute. Profisee is the main host of this webcast, but we have also on the line representatives from Microsoft and our partner CCG, who know a lot about retail and a lot about data and a lot about master data management. So we're hoping to have a good and interactive conversation here today. So let's jump into some introductions. This is, by the way, not really intended to be a PowerPoint presentation. We're not going to try and PowerPoint you to death. This is really more of a roundtable conversation, but we're going to use some PowerPoint just as background and as some visual aids, just so that you're not just looking at four talking heads. Oh, and also, I just went by the logos on that first slide, and my apologies. We also have someone here from 7-Eleven, Ojis, and I'll have him introduce himself in just a moment. Really our star speaker, given that he is an actual practitioner, an actual user of MDM software in the retail world, and so we're looking forward to hearing his story. So let's have everyone just go around the table and introduce yourselves. Chris from Microsoft, can you just tell us a few words about yourself by way of introduction?
Sure, yeah. Thanks for having me here this morning. My name is Chris Derringer, and I lead our U.S. retail and consumer goods practice for enterprise commercial. So what that means is myself and the team, we look at trends within the retail and consumer goods environment that are happening today, post-COVID, walking into holiday, or just in general, and help our customers realize those in their digital transformation journey that they sit on right now. Just quick background on myself. I did 5 Black Fridays in our own Microsoft retail stores as CTO there. Spent 5 years in the consumer goods practice space over at Hewlett Packard, half on consumer goods, half on engineering, and then a little bit of time on PepsiCo before that. So that rounds out my CG and retail experience.
Excellent, thanks, Chris. Ojis, can you tell us just a little bit about yourself and just to give us context?
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me here. I'm Ojis Nivsarkar. I head the enterprise data practice at 7-Eleven, primarily on the engineering, data governance, data architecture, data management side. I've been with 7-Eleven about 3 years, coming up to 3 years now. Have had the opportunity and the pleasure to redefine the entire data landscape at 7-Eleven, which we've done in the last 3 years, all the way from building up data lakes to setting up a master data management and data governance practice. A little bit more about me. I've done data for the last 20 years, various roles, various organizations. Was with Harley-Davidson before I came to 7-Eleven. I'm responsible for a similar role there. So really excited, having been a data practitioner all my life, I love the focus that data gets now. Data management, data governance, everything is in focus now. It's like I'm living a dream, right? So yay to all data people, and looking forward to a fun conversation.
Excellent. Harley-Davidson to 7-Eleven, that is a journey by itself. We'll have to hear more about that later. Malcolm, data governance expert from CCG. People who've been in the industry will probably know Malcolm's name. So although you probably need no introduction, can you give us an introduction anyway, Malcolm?
Sure, I'm Malcolm Chisholm. I'm a data governance expert with CCG Analytics. CCG has always had and continues to have a particular focus in retail. Like Ojis, I am pleased to be at last in the golden age of data. I've waited for it all my life, and we've finally arrived. My background is really through IT. I have a lot of experience in systems and product development, actually. But in recent years, I've focused on data governance, MDM, metadata management, data quality, all things data. And I'm also honored to have received the DAMA International Lifetime Achievement Award for contributions to master data management and reference data management.
Fantastic. Thanks, Malcolm. And myself, Martin Boyd, I'm VP Product Marketing at Profisee. I'm going to moderate the panel today and just kind of keep us moving and interacting. My personal background is here in Profisee as VP Product Marketing. I have one foot really in the product world and the other foot in what is it that customers are looking for. Personal background is that I've been in data and data quality and master data management for about the last 12 years or so, a couple of MDM companies and Oracle, so reasonably broad background in a lot of this stuff. So let us, with that introduction, jump into some of the conversation. Now, this is intended to be more of a conversation, as I said, but we do have some topics that we want to make sure that we cover, and we have kind of each one of us leading off a section just to kind of get the ball rolling, and then we'll have some of it more conversation as we jump in. And for our audience, I see there's more people still joining, which is great to see. Anyone who's on the line can drop a question into the questions box, and we will try and cover them either as we go or in Q&A time at the end. We'll just kind of see how that goes, and I'll try and moderate that into the flow of the conversation. And as I said, we do have some PowerPoint here, but we're not really trying to talk to the PowerPoint slides. We're hopefully more having a conversation just with visual aids. So let's start off with our first topic. So what's new in retail and what's driving it is the first place that we want to start some conversation. And we'll have Chris, given his role overseeing retail for Microsoft, talk a little bit about just what do you think is new in retail and what's driving it, Chris?
Sure. Really, it's hard not to talk about the impact that COVID has had without saying what's happening new in retail today. And the way to look at that, there's a three-part way that we're looking at this, right? And the first part is navigating the now or responding. We like to look at ourselves as the digital responders to a lot of the first responders that are out there today. And that's standing up, you might have seen crisis response centers or nerve centers defined around what some of these what some of these scenarios are, protecting employees, stress on customer safety, reorienting business. That's really kind of been that first responding piece. We're starting to see phase 2 or part 2 planning the comeback or recovery, depending on your state. Let's say state-to-state environments, and that's around recovery strategies, thinking about portfolios, accessing market opportunities, and just identifying what some of those are. To 3, which is shaping the new normal or reimagining, and that's really where we look at the shifts, put digital at the center, ideate to evolve, and plan for the long term. I love, this stat here that, or this quote from Satya, our CEO, that, the amount of disruption that we've seen around this great acceleration. So in 2 years, we've seen a digital transformation happen in just about 2 months. And when we talk about great acceleration, I think about the race to 50%, right? So that's 50% either shopping digitally or online, being that half percentage of people shopping physically in store. And we've currently seen growth around that for stats. A couple on those if you haven't seen. So specifically, and I'll look at one market, grocers and QSRs right now, those apps are up 100 to 200%. And why that's important and why that value exchange is so important is consumers will spend 2 to 3 more times in your ecosystem if you've installed the app and been loyal to them. So the convenience offered, the companies that hardened and invested in digital, right, are really seeing some of that initial growth. To stay in just that grocer segment, we've seen growth move 20% since an increase in online spending and 20% since social distancing, 40% post stimulus checks, right? Delivery meals post social distancing have gone up around 20 to 100%, where post stimulus checks, that's almost up as high as 100 to 200. And we really think that's here to stay, right? I think we've said 85% of shoppers say that they'll continue to shop online post-COVID. And as far as that concern for going back goes, 73% of those consumers are still hesitant to resume regular activities outside of the home. And then if we break that up into a few categories, You know, the non-essential categories, really high income earners or millennials are the online leaders in that section. But in essentials, where we're seeing a lot of, you know, value being king, we've seen 2 to 5 percentage points gains in those value lines, particularly let's use shampoo as an example, where premiums have dropped almost 5 points in volumes. And the really interesting thing about it right now, you know, leading into holiday, is that consumers are switching brands at unprecedented rates. 75% of shoppers are starting new behaviors. 36% of consumers are trying new products, with 73% of those intending to continue that within their day-to-day routine. So I love that we had a conversation about data. I'm going to throw stats and data out there, and then I think part of the role of our job is to dissect information out of those. So you start to get an idea of what holiday season is going to look like, and the connections of what the COVID world has driven consumers' behavior and how that's going to look. And maybe we'll jump into the next slide to go into what some of those look like.
Yeah, why don't you cover off just a little bit on terms of the technologies and the trends that are top of mind, and then we can talk a little bit about it.
Sure, yeah. So, you know, a couple of the things that I think is important here, and just to set the standard for context, right, and I'll throw more stats on it. 48% of shoppers plan on purchasing most, if not all, of their holidays online, right? And that's, you know, 32% of those shopping, they say, will start around in October. So interesting stat that not only are consumers changing their loyalty, but they're going to start early this year. 56% chose one retailer over another given delivery option. So having the right, if you're thinking about micro fulfillment, the supply chain that you have, and we talked about the BOPIS and Boris, which is buy online, pick up in store, buy online, return in store, and now BOPAC, which is buy online, pick up at curb. And 70% of shoppers don't mind waiting if they get an accurate date. Where 62% of shoppers definitely paid attention to return policies. So a lot of things are architecting and reacting around these new trends and having the ability to deliver against those trends. So let's talk about kind of some of those in the essential retail environment, right? And we talked about curbside pickup, ship to home services. What's really important, I talked about the increase of those delivery apps that are being delivered to customers directly, and those ship to home services, like there's the Instagram, the Ships, the Grubhubs, the Uber Eats. But what's really interesting is, you know, when COVID hit and Instacart went on strike, I'll use, you know, Publix as an example. When Publix couldn't fulfill those orders directly, it wasn't Instacart that took the hit, right? On social media and Twitter, it was Publix, right? So while these delivery services offer great shots in the arms and initial opportunities to connect with your customers, you're somewhat at the mercy of their services, right? And when we talk about data, right, the ability to stay directly connected with your consumer, to build brand and affinity and connection directly with them, we think it's incredibly key and important for our customers to connect with those consumers directly, and not put all of their eggs in the intermediary basket. So when we talk about data, when we look at data, and when we talk about, you know, knowing and understanding your customers, one, that relationship, two, understanding them, and B, being able to control a little bit of that business, incredibly important. Also important in certain cases, the premiums charged on these services can be a loss leader. And so what's again important is to look at how you can connect up your services, tie data to that, and deliver and own that experience directly. And so that's where we kind of look at the BOPAC, the omni-channel experience is sitting there. But what's also very important is if we look at evolving employee needs, you know, we used to think about providing a great experience to consumers, engaging them, understanding their physical and digital behaviors, bringing them in store and giving them a really personalized, curated journey. That's a big shift to move from that to quickly pull someone in, get them in and, you know, we'll say in and out of your store in an efficient and safe way for both employee and consumer. And with all the changes that are going on from state, local, federal government, any one of those that are happening on a day-to-day basis, all the way up to brand, to corporate policy, to, you know, 7-Eleven on the line, like our franchisees, providing clear guidance on the day-to-day changes for your employees and your associates is not just important, but almost critical to give consumers the confidence that they're walking into a place that has the safety and support that they're looking for, and they're looking for out of your brand. And so that gets to that employee safety piece that we're talking over on the right. And again, there's all sorts of technology components that can do that. There's computer and there's cognitive computer vision, voice recognition, all sorts of sensors that are out there that are able for you to detect both consumers and employee safety. Do they have the right PPE equipment? Have they handled the products in the way that you want them to? And then there's, on top of that, a series of AI and ML when we look at virtual assistants, chatbots, new standards that can help store managers, that can help warehouses, that can help any one of your fulfillment chain drive and connect those things together.
So a huge amount of things changing and lots of good stats to back it up. Let me ask you, Chris, and then I'll open it to Ojis and Malcolm as well. Are you seeing new technologies being brought in to handle these changes, and particularly technologies around data, I suppose, new ways that data may be being used to support this kind of, you know, the insight and agility that's going to be required to follow these trends?
Yeah, did you want me to go, or was that to?
Yeah, just a quick answer from you, and then I'll ask Ojis and Malcolm to weigh in as well.
Absolutely, right. So a lot of this is, when I think about technology, a lot of this is compute on the edge, right? And when I say compute on the edge, that's IoT devices in store. If you think about supply chain and the impacts of products moving in and out at record rates, what does shelf analytics look like? As I talked about cognitive and computer vision and understanding and sensing employee temperature rates, or are they actually following and adhering to safety standards? There's a tremendous amount of structured and unstructured data that comes out of that. And so being able to quickly digest, pull all of this, mine that information, and then do something actionable with it is incredibly important, right? And that's when we start talking about you know, machine learning models, deep learning models, able to sift through, help provide recommendations for actual action on top of that today. Go ahead and pause. That's the first piece that I'll say, and then hand over.
Yeah. Ojis, from your perspective at 7-Eleven, how are you seeing new technologies or new techniques being brought in to handle these kind of changes in behavior?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think Chris hit it right on the head, and he covered the two most important areas, you know, be it vision, computer vision, and you know, IoTs. Those have definitely become paramount in terms of the new technology, new data evolution, right? How can we compute more at the edge, collect more data at the edge, and really process that at the edge? Along with that, continuing in the lines of ML and AI, is text analytics, right? What happened in COVID was a lot of information was what was previously structured information all of a sudden started becoming unstructured, because, you know, rules were being broken and new processes were being built, and a lot of information was now being gathered textually, right? Not, you know, what used to be a Y and N attribute all of a sudden became two lines of you know, written lines about a situation. So text analytics also becomes a very important area. So lots of new developments in the fields of ML and AI, operating on newer, richer data sources. I think that's where the direction is.
Excellent. Malcolm, anything from your experience on how our
Yeah.
new technologies?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm particularly interested in the, you know, AI revolution, machine learning, you know, the idea of IoT data telling us more about, you know, intelligent customer interactions that we have would be one example. From my personal perspective, I mean, you can get overwhelmed with the vast amount of IoT data. It's, you know, when I put on my data governance hat, it's turning that into useful, actionable metrics. How do you, you know, funnel that down through the models to something that can give you a predictor or an insight or something like that. I think that the technology is advancing in those areas, and it's giving us a lot of, it's building competitive edge. I mean, you can, and also efficiencies. You can understand the behavior in a downtown store in a major urban area versus a more rural setting, and start to think better about those differences rather than vague one-size-fits-all approaches.
Yeah, I suspect Ojis has got quite a lot to say about that when we get to his the section we're going to have him lead and talk about 7-Eleven. So thank you. Chris, I think you had a couple of examples here of some companies, two companies that have used technology in to change some of their behavior and to change how they operate.
Yeah, depending on, I think we can get through both quickly, but I'll start on the first. So Chipotle, the brand, as you can see there, one of their challenges is they had 80 million unique credit cards that they had both on their inline restaurant transactions, but they had no way to tie those up to customers. They couldn't effectively drive the customers to the rewards loyalty program that they launched back in 2019, and it really limited their ability to build brand awareness and then drive that loyalty. And as I mentioned, build on those sales. So when we talk about data, we did a couple things with them. We put together a customer data platform to develop deeper relationships and drive that loyalty. Once we had and understood the customer profile, we were able to apply data. And I think what's really important is not just their first party data that they have in their own marketing channels, but syndicate data, or what we'll call third-party data. So you're able to harness and put together, as an example, customer information where they've opted into that, but all sorts of other information like weather, hotel occupancy rates, sporting events, social economic information, to get a better understanding of how to properly deliver the right either campaigns or offers to those people. And then just cleaning up their entire data management and information management practice. When we look at a data lake, MDM, analytics, all again around that building loyalty and driving customer engagement piece. Results out of that, so 15 million in reward loyalty members since launch. It's about 0.21 billion or 200 million in sales, and that's an increase in 216% on digital sales for their Q2. We saw 70% increase in digital sales since they launched their rewards program. 65% of newly enrolled rewards members, totaling right around 47 net new dollars per customer and spend that they're able to get. And then that mobile app that they put together on that, it's top 10 on now the Apple Store and Android Store. So if you're not familiar, haven't shopped with Chipotle, I think the next campaign is the burrito around holiday. Definitely check that out. It's going to be a fun and exciting one there. I don't know if there's any questions, or I transition over to the other quickly.
No, we're good. No questions on that particularly.
All right. And then, if we look at Starbucks, right, the first thing, in Starbucks that at least I think about is, they have a customer first oriented operations, again, that deliver personalized, relevant customer experiences, and they want increased efficiency. The first thing you kind of think about, or you may not know, with Starbucks' mobile app is, I think they do about 26 million in transactions just on their mobile app. And to put that in perspective, Apple Pay, which is an ecosystem, recently achieved higher results at 28 million, but Google Pay is a distant third at around 3, right? So, I mean, for a single app, single mobile ordering environment, that's a lot of information and data to process. And what they pride themselves on are exceptional experiences. So they wanted to not just grow customer exceptions that connect up to their mobile orders and pay options, but if you think about devices and you think about products, right, what's really important is to make sure that those devices and espresso machines are available. So we use, when we talk about technology, we have products called our Azure Sphere, to securely connect devices back to stores. Not to get too technical, but they have an espresso machine connected up with their nitro cold brew machine. We connect that up to the cloud to enable predictive maintenance, reduced waste, manage energy consumption, and drive drink consistency. So when we talk about compute at the edge, this is an example of one of those products that are out there, not just to support customers, but also keep the maintenance and operations of stores available. Data from those smart coffee machines can be used to support machine repair issues. Recipes can be sent to the cloud, to the machines, to enable Starbucks to deliver that consistent coffee and give that really strong experience that customers are expecting.
So 2 examples that really embrace data in completely different ways, but use it to really drive how they operate as a business, which sets us up, I think, perfectly for the next section, which is the impact of data. How does it help or hinder retailers? So I'm going to have Malcolm kick off here and talk a little bit about governance. I'll talk a little bit about master data management and just talk about how data can be used to build insights around what is happening and how retailers can use that same data to then drive agility, their ability to respond. So Malcolm, can you tell us a little bit about how you see retailers getting started and how they should be governing and managing their data?
Right. So I think,
talk about governance.
Right. So thinking about, people ask what is data governance. I think of it as a horizontal function that sets the rules of the road for how the enterprise manages data. It's kind of like, people are everywhere in the enterprise. HR sets the rules of the road for that. Money's everywhere. Finance does the same for that. Well, data's everywhere, and it's been like anarchy or the Wild West for quite a time. But now, as Ojas hinted, we are in the golden age of data, and we're going to use data governance to manage data properly as a valuable resource. So now that does sound a little bit like defensive, and I think today we see data governance doing, having 2 broad roles. One is risk mitigation, quite frankly, but the other is really democratizing data, bring it to everybody in the organization. People can be in their ordinary work using data more effectively to do their jobs. That's becoming possible through the new technologies, things like self-service BI and analytics. So data governance has to do that part of it as well. At the same time, we do have things like data privacy, which is going to be important. It's important in retail. Why? Because we want to deliver personalized experiences to our customers, and part of that is getting customers to trust us with their data. If we can prove that we trust customers with our data, not only will we be complying with the regulations, and I don't want to diminish that, but we'll be using that as a competitive differentiator. That will then drive the personalization, and we can go on from there. And we've got a little bit of an example on the next slide, if we can go to that, which is a very diversified company, Headington, which has a particular set of brands, but delivers through many different channels, retail and hospitality being 2 examples. So their challenge was, well, how do we cross-sell? How do we upsell? How do we understand what our customers might need, what their preferences, their interests, their concerns are, and package more personalized experiences for them? How do you do that? Well, you're going to need MDM to do that, basically. So that's the core technology, but data governance is a big part of MDM. Data governance helps when we do MDM to do things like, the decision framework for how we set up rules, how we do things like merges or unmerges for duplication, and the concerns that I've just illustrated about privacy will also be taken care of. That, in this particular case, did increase sales growth. It did drive an increase in top line or achievement of top line revenue goals, and we got better KPIs, better metrics as a result. So it's successful. So you see how data governance can go into many areas and aid them to get really impactful results for the enterprise. Very important to get that into those insights to drive that agility that we've been talking about in the retail sector.
Excellent. And can you talk just for a second on the interaction or the how governance and master data management work together, and then I'll talk a little bit about what MDM is and how it kind of works. But if you can kind of tell us how they bridge or don't.
Well, I think that there's general acceptance today that you do need governance when you do MDM. For customers, as I've mentioned, understanding privacy is important, but there's other elements of governance that I need too, like what does our data mean? Okay. And I've been, I've witnessed projects where there's been food fights about what a metric means or it should mean, and different areas of the enterprise can't decide. So we have to solve that problem. Like, what is traffic in a store? Is it everybody who comes in? Is it, people who buy something? Is it people who wander in and I just use the restrooms? I don't know. Understanding what we mean by metrics, how we calculate them, the methodologies to enable us to interpret them and gain those insights. That's also a big part of data governance. Also helping with acquisition of external data sets. Sure, we get a lot of information about our customers within the enterprise, but it's increasingly important to get data through data acquisition channels, a data acquisition supply chain into our MDM environments to be able to do more complete analytics. So those are a few examples.
That makes sense to me. So let's, I'm going to talk just for a moment about master data management and how once you've decided what your governance rules are, to Malcolm's point, what you would do about it to enforce them. And just a little bit around there tends to be a lot of fragmentation in the data sources. And I'll just use this little illustration to talk about it, and then I think this will set up the conversation with Ojis quite nicely. So how does master data management help with the enforcement of governance standards? So once you've decided that a customer is a unique person, for example, or a unique business or whatever it is in your particular case, you need to look at what are all the different sources of information for that person. Within, there may be a CRM system that has multiple versions of a person that we need to correct and deduplicate. There may be information in an ERP system, in a supply chain management system, in the case of retailers, in an order management system or fulfillment system. And then then you want to look at the overall analytics for that person or entity or whatever it is. Once we've decided that this has got to be a unique entity, and we've found all the different instances of it, we've done match and merge so that we've synchronized, we've come up with a single version. Now we can do analytics and get proper insight as to exactly what is going on with that person. What are all their levels of activity? What have they done? What have they bought? What have they rejected? And to Ojis's observation earlier, even text analytics around this person, see if they're happy or not happy. So taking all the fragmentation of data and from multiple data sources and finding a way to compress them into one single trusted, reliable record, I think is set up by governance, but then it is the value is really derived when we have all that information that we can use AI, machine learning, etc., to really analyze and look for what might this person be open to in terms of a new offer, or how should we treat them to maximize their experience and relationship. One place that has been done, just another customer example here, is Domino's, maybe one of the largest MDM implementations in the world, and really reflecting on what Chris talked about with Chipotle as well, that they want to understand their customer much better. They have hundreds of millions of customers who can call in through an app, through a browser, through a phone. Domino's wants to recognize that that's all one person. They want to know their previous buying history, and if they always order the garlic knots when they're ordering from their office, they want to make maybe a customized offer of that kind of stuff. So that they are using MDM and Profisee in particular to standardize all that information, doing matching against hundreds of millions of records in order to understand buyer behavior, reduce operational costs, but more importantly, to improve the customer experience by giving them customized offers that allow them to reduce their marketing spend and improve their revenue. So similar to some of the other examples that have been talked about here, harnessing all the data they have, but not in a fragmented way, in a much more holistic way, in order that they can improve what it is they're doing for their customers. Rather than having a lot of conversation about that, I'm going to move straight on to 7-Eleven and have Ojis talk a little bit about what their journey has been. How have they taken some of these techniques and used them to drive their data, their business? And I think that'll pull a lot of these different threads together, and then hopefully we'll have a bit of time on the back end to talk a bit more about it. And I see a couple of questions here that I will try and get that have been submitted online, and we'll try and get to them in the Q&A session at the end. But reminder that you can drop more questions into the questions box if there's anything else you want to talk about. So let me hand over now and have Ojis, let me have you talk a little bit about 7-Eleven's journey. What was your motivation? What is it you've done, and where are you going?
Yes, absolutely. So 7-Eleven, just a little bit about 7-Eleven in case, for those that don't know, we have 71,000 stores in 17 countries. Actually, it became 18 yesterday. I saw an announcement.
Sorry, the slides are out of date. Couldn't keep up.
But yes, so the largest retailer in the world in terms of number of outlets, have been on this digital transformation journey in the last 3 years. And as part of the digital transformation journey, we started our customer loyalty program, 7 Rewards, that started about 3 years back, and coming into big time. So that's kind of when my journey with 7-Eleven started. As we started building all this customer base of customer data for the first time in the history of our existence, we said we need, the leadership recognized the need to manage this data better for every purpose, right? And then also in the last few years, we've had privacy regulations, GDPR started in Europe that, kind of gave signs of things coming in the United States as well. So those regulations also created the need. So with all these things, right, we saw the need of building, a customer data platform, a customer 360 application, connected with a CRM application, and that's kind of what drove the need for our platform. Can you hit next, please? Yes. So how did we go about in this journey, right? So as we started collecting customer information in our rewards program, with it came the need to build customer analytics. With it came need to have a marketing back arm, right? A CRM product that can reach the customers. As we were trying to do all those things, right? So we said the first thing to build is a customer master data management system. We really need to understand who the customer is, add all value-added attributes about the customer. To Chris's example, right? Bring in third-party enriched data about the, whether it's third-party enriched data about the person or about the environment. Bring that all into a platform that will become the base of our customer 360. So customer 360 is more of an application of that customer data where we're going to build analytics around it. But analytics are only as good as your base data is. So we started with a customer domain about 2 years back. That's all fully live. The customer MDM now serves as the backbone of our customer 360 and also of our CRM application. We manage 40 million customer records in there, deduplication, enrichment, and so on. And it's also formed our, as we said, foundation for a CCPA, right? The California Act, as we all know, requires all retailers or really all businesses operating in the state of California to be able to serve a customer's data needs in terms, data privacy needs, if they want to know what kind of data is collected on the customer, or if they want to be forgotten by a business, that went into effect 1st of January of this year. And again, requires any business to be able to tell any customer on all data points that we have on them. Now that's an excellent use case for MDM. If you have a strong MDM solution, that could be one place where you dip in and can have a quick response to the customer needs. That's exactly what we did, right? And then the most important use case, right, is the foundations of analytics, right? Again, it's about deduplication, it's about reducing costs, just like Martin said, right? There is operational cost reduction, there is deduplication, managing the customer identities, that's all great. But the most important factor is customer experience. How do you personalize a customer experience, right? Chris talked about loyalty and how loyalty is changing retail and loyalty is driving retail. And with loyalty comes personalization. You have to really know every person, serve them well. And you can't really do that without master data management. So customer MDM was our first project, very successful. It forms the base again for all AI, ML, all personalization, and all marketing targeting.
Excellent. Quick question. How does AI and ML, how are they used in your business, and how does are they reliant on the master data management to standardize the data, or are they kind of just in different parts of the business? How does that?
Great question. It's actually a two-way street, right? AI ML can only be as good as again the data that comes in. So yes, it relies heavily on the master data management solution to get an input of, and I'll just use one use case, right? One example. Let's talk about customer segmentation. So we do an AI-driven customer segmentation that tags customers based on various internal groups that we put them in. Now that's all AI-driven, and that requires clean customer data to build on top of it, right? As soon as we build this segmentation, this gets loaded back into the MDM solution now for usage within, say, marketing analytics or loyalty analytics. Anybody that needs to use it. So AI, ML, and MDM is they work together with data flowing in both directions.
Another quick question that just came in from the audience here. Which was the bigger driver, the CCPA compliance or the foundation for analytics? I mean, obviously they're both part of it, is what you already said, but was there one that was really the driver over the other?
In our case, the driver was the foundation for analytics and marketing, right? The CCPA thing came along a little bit later, but it could be either. I mean, regulatory and CCPA is just the beginning, right? Other states are going to follow suit, and at some point of time, I think all of us data practitioners, we expect a federal national level law that's going to be more GDPR-like. So that should serve, if no other reason, I would say regulatory and audit always gets the funding approved very quickly. So maybe CCPA can be your driving reason, but in our case, it was definitely analytics.
Excellent. So let's have you talk a little bit, Ojas, about where you're going, having started with the customer and having got, it seems, quite a lot of success there. What is your overall journey? And then we'll try and have a broader conversation with everyone about what they're seeing here.
Absolutely. So customer domain, when we say it's done, well, it's not really done, right? MDM, just like data governance, just like data management, is a journey. So we did go live with customer MDM in 2019, but we are constantly enhancing, constantly building new features. Again, a lot of them AI ML driven, be it segmentation, be it customer lifetime values, be it probabilities of customers being active. Everything feeds back into our MDM solution. So the MDM keeps improving on top. It is cyclic activity, right? What do we do next? We are already quite deep into our location/store domain, right? We have in 7-Eleven North America over 10,000 stores. We have some big acquisitions coming our way, which will obviously make the size much bigger. So on all these lines, our focus is to now improve store analytics. Again, it's not just the store analytics, right? And it's not just the store MDM saying, oh, we need to manage stores better. Even when it comes to store, it goes back to the same journey. Can we build store level segmentation? Can we have a persona of a store, which is AI ML driven? So we need a lot of good data about the store that's going to then drive analytics about a store, then that feeds back into an MDM. And again, a cyclic activity of managing the store as an identity, right? Just like you manage customer as an identity and personalize the customer, managing the store as an identity and personalizing the store is our next use case. And one very interesting COVID-related tidbit, right? So who here, 7-Eleven, some people think is open from 7 to 11 in the night, right? That's what it probably started from, right? But that's not true. All 7-Elevens are 24-hour. And when I say all, that's 99.99%, right? We're all 24/7. So in any of our operational systems, we never had a store start time and a end time, or a opening time and close time. Now, without a lack of an MDM system, and in the COVID environment, all of a sudden there was a need to ensure that we are able to track the opening time and closing time of a store, because COVID regulations was creating that need. So a really interesting use case, very specific to COVID, that we were able to solve at least partially through our store MDM that we've been working on. Next is probably the most challenging for us, which is product, right? Again, product is vast, product is huge, product information varies from one manufacturer to another, one CPG to another. So there's so much patterns, there's so much difference in data in being able to manage and merge products. There's, again, managing product as a domain, product as an entity becomes very important to analytics, right? So that we know we can group products that might seem very varying to the naked eye, but are similar in nature for a customer. So again, driving to customer analytics, how do you link products to customers and their commonness, or their uniqueness through an MDM solution? That's our next goal. So product domain is what we're going to be focusing on.
Fantastic. So question that came in on the chat that I'll ask is how much cloud are you using in delivering this? But Malcolm and Chris, if you want to, I'll ask you the same question. And if you also want to direct any questions to Ojis about what they've done and how they're doing it, feel free. But first of all, Ojis, cloud, how much cloud are you using in this project?
So we are 100% on cloud. Again, luckily for me, when I came into 7-Eleven, that's when the digital journey had started. So got an opportunity to define the architecture right from the get-go. So we've built all our customer architecture, all our digital architecture is 100% cloud. And there is also a parallel work stream, not within my group, that is moving our other legacy applications into the cloud as well.
Okay. Another quick question from online. How big is the MDM team in 7-Eleven?
It's not too big. I mean, you'll be surprised with how the modern day tools can be managed with a lot less resources, right? You would think, but we have a static team of about 5 people, and then the flex team that goes up and down based on the requirements can go between, another 5 to 10 people that get added or removed based on in ebbs and flows. But we are able to manage the whole thing with a very, very trim team.
Excellent. Malcolm and Chris, open it up now for you to ask Ojis anything that you want. And Malcolm, were you lining up for a question there?
Sorry, didn't get off mute in time.
There you go.
Ojis, quick question on you're looking at customer, location, store, and product, all different domains. To what extent do you see like the commonalities of MDM being useful and sort of driving efficiency versus there's a kind of an art to each of these where you have to have some specific understanding of how product works? You mentioned it's complex. what, location and customer? How do you see that balance?
No, great question. I mean, it is a tight balance, right? Some things are more art than others, and I'll be very candid. We went with customer because that was our burning need, but luckily for us, that was also the easiest one to deal with. See, there's less art in customer. I mean, you do match on a name, you can match on an address, you can match on some details, but if you're not matching beyond a certain level of certainty, you kind of don't match it, and the cost of not matching or cost of not being 100% accurate is not that high. So the MDM rules engine will work, and you can match customer, and you get a fair bit of accuracy, right? As you get into store and product, the art starts becoming more important, right? You have to get more creative in terms of the rules engine. The MDM tools have been equipped to do a lot of fuzzy matching and AI-driven analytics, right? But you have to be more creative. You have to be more artsy. You have to have the right level of thinkers that know the domain very well as you get into store and product, right? Because the cost of going wrong there or cost of not matching is much higher in that case.
Thanks.
Good stuff. Chris, question for you. Coming back to the cloud thing, I think we all know where Microsoft stands in terms of the use of the cloud. Are there any, and Ojis is obviously fully on board with that, are there any parts of what retailers need to do that are less well suited for the cloud, where there's things that are kind of stubborn holdouts that are better suited to not be in the cloud, or is it really every part of the data operation can or should be moved to the cloud?
Everything 110%, get it all up there, man.
It's kind of a dumb question, but after I asked it, I was like, well, what else is Chris going to say?
Get that compute, get that AI on there, get those analytics, right? Leverage everything that you have. No, it's a good question, right? Because it's every company is on an evolution and a journey in different stages. If we think about things not to the cloud, I think about, are there hardened things in store that are required that can still, the cloud manages data back and forth, but is there certain transactional processing that you need inside a store, if I'm specific, or inside of a manufacturing plant, at least for speed or correct connectivity, and then you can do batch data sends as opposed to real time in certain cases. Typically point of sale is one of the first, right, that people will talk about, right? Like if you're a grocer or if you're a C store or a QSR, right, you're going to want those beeps happening very quickly. Any tech that I could pull out of store was, incredibly cost effective for me. So where I could do that and move to the cloud and our own Microsoft stores environment was very important. Things, required in store, like I said, are usually, point of sale, transaction, line busting. But all of that ties into cloud-based technology. If you think about the payment terminal, the gateway, connecting back to customers, getting customer loyalty, you draw all of that, but transact, specifically at the edge, if you will. One of the things I know we did is tax. The first one we started to develop was, could we pull taxation from the cloud? So, what are the 4 things you need that's important for taxes? You got to know the person, the product, the time, and the location, right? So if you know those 4 things, you can design the specific tax required for that area. And it's even odd if you think about, like, why person, some special dignitaries out of state don't have to pay a certain tax. There are certain tax holidays that are out there today where you don't have to pay X amount, or you don't have to, if a certain amount goes above a threshold but below another. So there are, if you lose connectivity to the cloud for whatever reason, you want to have those simple rates available. But then, once you get connectivity back, you can draw each one of those at a moment's notice.
So everything should be in the cloud, and you can occasionally cache things locally if you have to. That's kind of the answer.
Yeah, right. I go along on that one. And the other one I'd say, like, Starbucks is a great example, right? If you look at behavioral analytics or video analytics, right? You don't have to do a full day, right? Some of their most highest driven source times are between the times of 6 a.m. to 9 a.m., right? So capturing a lot of that locally in store during that time and then shipping that back out to the edge to track behavioral analysis, store shopping behaviors, whatever you're doing is also important as well.
Okay. One quick question also for you, but then Ojis and Malcolm can weigh in with their experience. AI and ML, we've talked about quite a bit, and we've talked about, you know, having the right data properly consolidated as the foundation for being able to use that. But what is the level of penetration, if you have a statistic or knowledge about this, Chris? How much is actually being used? For example, what percentage of retailers are already doing that versus, you know, still trying to get there?
Whoa, oh, that's going to have to be a phone a friend.
Okay.
I mean, I don't want to give the wrong answer because it's so varied in, are you a marketing organization in home improvement, or are you a are you part of the process manufacturing in consumer goods, or are you a marketing organization in a C-store, right? All of those answers are going to be very different, and I don't have a blended across all of retail consumer goods. The sub verticals are so varied and the functions are so varied. I'm gonna have to get that, but there's always room for more, right? Like we talk about the total attainable market for cloud being somewhere in the trillions, right? Like that, we've only scratched the surface in that area. So I think there are some leaders, some people on the edge, some folks delivering value around that, but there's still, you know, there's lots of room to ebb and flow across an entire organization. So if I'm reading right, it's a harder one to answer, and I've got to, you know, come back and think about how to answer that one.
Okay, no problem. Malcolm, Ojis, from your perspective, any final thoughts, because we're nearing the end of the time here, on data and how it gets used, and in particular, what it's allowing retailers to be able to do? Or
well, I think from my perspective, just to pick up on the last point, I think we're starting to see a convergence of data governance and analytics governance, particularly in what you call the last mile in analytics, is where the model's been developed. Well, how do I put that into a business process? What's the organizational change management around that so they can use the output of the models? How do we get people to trust the models? So that's something I think that's an emerging trend.
Excellent.
Absolutely. No, I agree 100% with what Malcolm and Chris said. I mean, going back to what Chris was saying, right? So the evolution is still going on. All retailers, I will say this, which might not sound that humble, but the thing is, if a retailer is not on an AI ML journey, I would be very worried about them not being a retailer in the next.
Right.
I mean, it is, you know, the kind of decisions that need to be made now, the kind of digitization that's happened. AI ML is a must. And the reality is AI ML is nothing but the next level of analytics. You know, analytics has always been recognized as a must, all the way from, you know, 80s, 90s. You know, we've had gurus of data warehousing that had laid the foundation for analytics and shown the usage for it. And big data kind of changed that architecture, and now AI ML has become more important. But the foundation remains the same. Analytics is very important, and analytics in the big data world is all going to be AI ML driven. And back to the same foundation, whether it was analytics in the 90s and in the early 2000s or analytics now, the reality is junk in, junk out. You know, data quality remains paramount, and data governance and MDM become the pillars of maintaining data quality that helps you improve analytics, whether traditional analytics or AI/ML.
Perfect. Well, that's probably the perfect place to stop. And I guess the summary of all of that is we're not sure what the current level of penetration is, but if you're not on the path to putting the right foundation in place and starting to leverage some of these more advanced analytic technologies, you're going to struggle in the future, I think, is a fair answer. So we're out of time. I want to thank everyone who's been on here. Chris, Microsoft, Malcolm from CCG, and of course, Ojis from 7-Eleven. Thank you very much, all of you, for your insights. I think I did a decent job of directing the questions that came in online. If there's anything that we didn't cover, we'll try and cover that separately. But for now, thank you all very much. Thank you for the audience, and thank you for your time. We'll speak to you again soon. Thank you.